I started my first side hustle that started making me serious money in December of 2017, and it is now 2025. So a lot of time has passed. Many years have passed since I started side hustling. Is that a verb? It is now. But many years have passed, and if I were to start all over again in the year 2025, which I guess I kind of am because Rich Teachers the podcast is a new side hustle for me, these are the things that I would do. This is Rich Teachers with Becky Park. I've shared my origin story, if you will, regarding the different side hustles that I started and that I currently have in my life that are making me life-changing money. I've shared about how they started, and if you are familiar with my story, you know that for the most part, I started many of my side hustles accidentally. And I would say I have three main side hustles. I have reselling, I have my YouTube channel about my reselling journey, and I have my affiliate marketing, which is actually the most lucrative of the three. That's where I make the most income year to year. Reselling, I kind of fell into on accident in that I was just looking to sell some of my old clothes, some of my husband's old clothes, and kind of fell in love with what it was like to sell clothing online. And I started finding clothing from other places outside of my own closet. YouTube obviously was a bit more intentional. I don't think many people accidentally fall into YouTube. There's a lot more planning that you have to do. Like you have to film the videos, you have to edit them, you have to, post them online. But I would say the most accidental side hustle of all has been affiliate marketing. I didn't really know that that was even a thing and just had people clicking on links that I would throw up in my descriptions of YouTube videos just because I wanted to make it easier for people to find the products or the services that I was using. And before I knew it, that turned into an extra $100,000 plus a year, which is life-changing. That's pretty amazing. But in the year 2025, I decided I wanted to start this podcast, Rich Teachers, and I was much more intentional going in about how I would build this from the ground up in a way that was sustainable, in a way that hopefully would grow very quickly, and in a way that I'm hoping will generate profit for me sooner than my other side hustles did. Now, for transparency's sake, I'm not making any money off of Rich Teachers at this point yet. And I like to think that that's because Rich Teachers has only been in existence for about 3 weeks at this point. Not even a month. In fact, Rich Teachers is only losing me money because I'm paying for my podcast hosting service. I'm paying for, like an email list service. So I'm actually spending money and I'm not making any yet. But hopefully you stick around for the journey. You can do that by subscribing to this podcast, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, or you can subscribe on YouTube if that's the avenue through which you're watching or listening. Hopefully you decide that you want to follow along on my journey and see how long it takes to monetize this thing. But I'm going to share with you the 9 things that I would do if I were starting a side hustle in the year 2025. And these are the 9 things that I'm actually doing because I am starting a side hustle in the year 2025. So let's get into kind of the first tip or the first step. The first thing I would do is to really get clarity before starting your side hustle in regards to who you're going to serve and how you're going to serve them. Side hustles can look a lot of different ways. You can start a podcast or a YouTube channel. You can be a service-based side hustle. I'm thinking things like lawn care. Maybe you do hair or nails or makeup. Maybe you bake. Maybe you clean houses. I'm thinking of some kind of service. You can create something, whether it's something that you build, whether it is a digital product. There are so many different side hustles in the world, but I think the first question you have to answer is, who is my side hustle for? Who is it that I'm trying to serve? And for me, when I thought about Rich Teachers, I knew I wanted to create a podcast that was centered on entrepreneurship, but I wanted to narrow the scope even more because there are a lot of people speaking about entrepreneurship, and there are a lot of people who have way more experience with entrepreneurship than I do. And I asked myself, what unique experiences and perspective do I have to bring to the table that is going to make it worth it for other people to choose my podcast to listen to instead of someone else's? And I figured out that what makes me unique and stand out from all of the other entrepreneur podcasts is that I'm looking at it through the lens of building a side hustle while teaching full time. That's pretty specific. And you might think to yourself, okay, but if I want to appeal to as many people as possible, don't I need to zoom out a bit? Like, why are we so laser focused on this one small subset of people? But the reason you want to focus in on such a specific niche is so that you can really speak clearly to this group of people, because you are living their experience, because you're able to speak to them using their vernacular, you're in their world, versus me trying to speak to entrepreneurs of all types, coming from all different kinds of backgrounds, possibly speaking to people who have degrees from Harvard in business or who have all of these really impressive accolades. I don't know that a lot of those people would care to listen to what I have to say, but instead to speak to a group of people that I know and love, that I can relate to because I am one of them. I am a high school choir teacher. And to be able to speak from experiences that are going to be so similar to those that I want to serve. I think the first step is being really clear about who it is that you want to serve and then how it is that you want to serve them. It's so interesting. I have a YouTube channel about reselling. That was my first side hustle, selling used clothing online. And I have a YouTube channel about it. And I get 2 comments pretty frequently on videos for that channel. One is people will tell me pretty often that they just like the sound of my voice, like they just like listening to me talk, which I don't really get, but I will take it. And 2, I get a lot of people saying, I can tell you're a teacher because you're just really good at explaining things clearly and in ways that I can understand. These are not conclusions that I have arrived at myself. It's just something that I kept seeing come up in comments. And that's why when I thought about how do I want to work with other teachers who want to grow their side hustles, I'll be honest with you, I'm not logistically gifted. I'm not super organized. I'm not very tech savvy. I have a lot of shortcomings, but I have an audience who told me what they felt my pros were. And so I decided to lean into those things. How could I serve the teacherpreneur community in a way that made the most sense for who I am and how I'm built? I landed on podcast because podcast is my voice and podcast is me getting to teach other people through my experiences. And those are the 2 things that my audience has told me I'm good at. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't know how to figure out what it is that I'm good at, or I don't know how to figure out how I should serve the community I want to serve. And you might say to yourself, I don't have an audience that's going to tell me either. I would say ask people. I actually created a course for resellers with YouTube channels during COVID. Talk about like getting super niche down, right? And one of the first assignments that I gave every student in that course was to ask 5 different people what the first 3 words were that came to mind when they thought of that person. So if I was a student in the cohort, I would go out to 5 different people. I would maybe go to my best friend. I would go to my dad. I would go to my brother, right? I would just go to 5 different people and I would say to them, what are the first 3 words that you think of when you think of me? And every time, all of my students were always so shocked at the kinds of answers that they would get, because these were things that they didn't really think of themselves. But more often than not, there was a commonality in the answers that people gave them, and they were able to see themes pop up of, oh my gosh, like so many people said that I'm really good at problem solving, or so many people said I'm a good listener. People were able to learn so much about how the world viewed them, how those closest to them, how their loved ones viewed them. And the purpose behind the assignment was to help them figure out the vibe and like kind of the heartbeat of their YouTube channels based on what people said. Were they going to have a YouTube channel that was more entertainment based, just kind of funny, like you get to just hang out with them? Were their YouTube channels going to be more like data driven, very numbers based because people told them that they're just very like numbers oriented? But the idea is when you ask other people what their perception of you is, it might give you some insight as to how you can serve the community that it is that you want to serve. And once you figure out those 2 things, who do you want to serve and how is it that you want to serve them, it becomes a lot easier to figure out what kind of side hustle you're going to find success in. The second thing I would do if I were to start a side hustle in 2025, and I'm literally doing that right now, is I would copy what other people do, especially people in other niches. And I am literally doing that with this podcast episode right now, because some of my favorite videos to watch and favorite podcast episodes to listen to from people in other niches and in other spaces. So I'm thinking like fitness. I've been watching a lot of fitness content lately on YouTube, or just like nutrition, or just like general self-help. I have watched so many videos titled something along the lines of, if I were to start running in 2025, or if I were to start working in 2025, I would do this. And I actually took that framework of a video and created a video like that for my reselling YouTube channel. I created, if I were to start reselling in the year 2023, I think that's the first time I did it. And that video blew up for me, and I wasn't surprised because that same format had blown up for other content creators for other niches. So even though I was copying their idea and their format, I definitely wasn't copying the content in their video, because I was talking about a completely different topic. And so in the same way, if you are in the content creation space and you find that one of your favorite content creators has created a video or a podcast episode and formatted it in a really interesting way, and you're noticing that that video or that podcast episode has really taken off for them, like they're getting an abnormally large number of views compared to what they normally do, see if there's a way to modify that format to work for your topic. This could also work when it comes to marketing your side hustle. Let's say you are offering a service, maybe it's bookkeeping, maybe it's being a virtual assistant, maybe it's cleaning people's houses, and maybe you have fallen victim to someone else's marketing and you signed up for a service because the marketing was just that good. See if there's a way that you could modify whatever it is they did to suck you in for your own small business. There are so many people doing so many great things already. If there's a way to study what it is that they're doing and modify it to work within your specific context, why wouldn't you do that instead of trying to come up with something brand new and fresh? Which, that's amazing too, but if you can't think of something, I think it's brilliant to borrow, or I mean, let's call it what it is, like completely copy what someone else is doing, as long as you're not copying the actual content of what it is that they've created. And the reason why I said to copy what other people do, especially people in other niches, is so that there is some originality there, right? Like, I'm not going to create the video titled, if I were to start running in the year 2025, because chances are I'm going to have a lot of the same tips or a lot of the same points as the original video that I saw that gave me the idea in the first place. But because I just really like the format of it, to take that and use it for reselling, or to use it for, starting my side hustle in the year 2025, these are all completely different points because they're about completely different topics. The next thing that I would do if I were to start a side hustle in the year 2025 is I would have a go-to place or a go-to system for where you write down any ideas you have, whether big or small, for your side hustle. I teach a songwriting class at my school. That is one of the classes that I teach first semester. And one of the things that I'm always telling the kids, especially when they go off into their separate spaces to start writing music, is I'll say, I know you don't feel like you need it, but as soon as you start singing or playing your instrument, hit record. Hit record on your phone, whether it's on voice memos, or turn on GarageBand or Soundtrap on your laptop, so that it's going to record the audio of everything that you're doing. Because what will happen is these kids will come up with a really great melody, or they'll come up with a really great hook or some great lyrics. And the second the moment is over and they try to go back and find it, they can't. It's gone. It has slipped through their fingers. And I tell them, even if you record the next 30 minutes and all of it is garbage, that's fine. You can delete it. But you just want to hit record on the off chance that there is a nugget in there that is actually the backbone of your entire song. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen, and you want to make sure that you capture it. In the same way, I cannot tell you how many times I have been out and about, or I'll be reading a book, or I'll just be in the middle of something and I come up with a great idea. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's so great. Maybe it's an idea for a YouTube video. Maybe it's an idea for a freebie that I want to create to grow my email list. And I'm like, that's such a great idea. And I go to grab it from my memory later, and it's gone. For the life of me, I cannot remember it. So for me, the system that I have when it comes to cataloging all of the different ideas that I have, both for Rich Teachers and also for my reselling YouTube channel, I just use notes on my phone, and I have like a shared notes that I can access from both my laptop and my phone, because at any point, I'm either going to have my laptop or my phone nearby. And as soon as an idea pops into my head, I literally will stop whatever I'm doing and jot that idea down in my notes. And then I also use a work management software called Asana. I use Asana to organize basically all of the ideas that I have in my notes from my phone or laptop. And what Asana helps me do is create projects out of the different ideas that I had. So let's go back to my example of, if I started blank in the year 2025, I would do this. And let's use my reselling video, for example, which, by the way, that video I did make for my reselling YouTube channel, and it is doing really well for me, like abnormally well for me, which is what I expected. But the first step was I wrote down in my notes app, if I were to start reselling in the year 2025. And if I had any ideas for like the kinds of tips or like the main points that I would make in that video, I would jot them down in the notes app. But then when I had a longer stretch of time, what I would do is I would open up Asana. It's just like a website online, or I have the app on my phone, and I would create a project called if I were to start reselling in the year 2025. And within that project, there's a place where I can create an outline of what I would cover in the video. I'm able to create tasks for myself of all the things that I need to get done in order for that project to be deemed complete. So examples of subtasks would be things like create an outline for this video, film this video, send the video to my video editor, watch the first edit of the video from my video editor, send my video editor feedback, create thumbnail for this video, post the video, right? Like I'm able to write out a detailed list of all of the things that I need to do. And then Asana is really nice too, because if you are working with someone else or if you have a small team, you're able to keep communication about one project within that one project instead of, you're just kind of texting each other and you're talking to your teammate about project A, but they think you're talking about project B. All of those conversations happen within the space on Asana that is set aside for project A. And then if you also have something to add about project B, you would go over to that space in Asana and start talking about whatever it is you need to talk about for project B over here. It's just a really great way to stay organized. So I start with just a brain dump, and I don't need anything fancy for that. I literally just use my notes app, and then I organize my brain dump using something like Asana. There are other work management softwares out there like Trello and Monday. I looked at a bunch, I landed on Asana, and I would also say you don't need a software like this. It is something that I pay for, and I only started using it once I hired a video editor starting last year for my reselling YouTube channel. I just needed something to help me stay organized, but if you are naturally an organized person, you probably don't need anything like Asana. But the important thing is that I have a system now for how I deal with any of these ideas that come across my brain at any given moment. I throw all of those little ideas in my notes app, and then later when I have more time to really think about those ideas and see if there's a way to flush them out. If it is something that I feel like is worthy of being its own YouTube video or a short or a reel on Instagram, then I will create projects within Asana for each of those little ideas, and I'll fully flush them out. So I'll realize during, the hour of planning that I give myself at the beginning of the week, when I schedule out what it is that I'm going to film that week, what it is that we're going to edit and upload, I will see in Asana just like my upload schedule, like the videos that I plan on uploading and the order in which I want to upload them. And they all started as little just sparks in my brain as I was out for a walk or while I was reading a book or something. And they went from that, just like these fleeting ideas, to fully fleshed out videos. And that's really cool. And it only happens because I have a system for how I'm going to catch all of those little ideas. A lot of them don't turn into anything, but every YouTube video that I have, every podcast episode that I've recorded started in that way. It started as just a little idea. I don't know if it's going to become anything, but I made sure to record the idea in my notes app, and here we are. The next thing that I would do in the year 2025, if I were to start a side hustle, and this is really something that I think I only learned last year. I would schedule moments of, I want to call them silence. I guess they don't have to be silence, but moments of non-work, moments of non-learning, just moments to be. For me, my favorite form of this is going outside for a walk. I like to go outside and soak in the vitamin D from the sun. And before, when I first started scheduling daily walks into my schedule, which honestly I've been really bad about doing like since 2025 hit, but I was doing a really good job of it in like the latter half of 2024. But when I first started walking outside, I would always take my phone with me. I would always take my headphones, and I would always listen to something that would help me grow as an entrepreneur, something that was going to help me grow my side hustles. I would listen to audiobooks, I would listen to podcasts, I would listen to YouTube videos. I felt like I couldn't just walk. I had to like always be learning. And that's not a horrible thing, right? Like it's great to multitask, if you will, and kill two birds with one stone. But I was challenged in a book or in a YouTube video somewhere, and someone said, what if you just walked? Like, what if you just went outside and walked without your phone, without your headphones, and you just walked and paid attention to nature? And more importantly, just gave your brain a rest. What would happen? So I tried that. I tried just walking, and oh my gosh, I never felt so creative ever before in my life. Like, I did end up whipping my phone out often during these walks because I would come up with so many ideas. Like when my brain was given the opportunity to just rest and really marinate on the different information that I had taken in throughout the day, maybe while I was driving, I was listening to a podcast, or, like I had been reading The $1 Million Weekend or something, but I never gave myself the time and space to just think about all of the information that was coming in. And when I started taking these walks outside and didn't have any headphones in, like I was just kind of looking at the nature, looking at different people's houses, and that's when my mind would wander and I would land on some really, really cool things. So I guess you can see kind of two of the tips of this episode colliding. Make sure you have a system for how you're going to jot down any ideas that come your way when inspiration hits, but also how can you create supercharged moments of creativity and inspiration? Go outside for a walk or just be by yourself in a space. Like some people like to meditate. I am not one of those people. And I feel like coming up with ideas for your business is the opposite of meditating. Like, isn't the point of meditating to like think about nothing? Anyway, I don't know what that looks like for you. Like, I like to think that the moving of my body helps with my creativity. So I'm inclined to say, go out for a walk, go kayaking, go for a hike, go for a bike ride. Like, I'm inclined to say you should do something a little bit more active, but maybe there are other things you can do. Maybe you can, put together a puzzle. Maybe you can, I don't know. I know I sound like I'm like an 80-year-old woman, but just give your brain a break from constantly taking in information, but allow it to apply everything you've been learning into creating actual ideas for your side hustle. The next thing I would do if I were to start my side hustle in 2025 is to learn what the pain points of the people I want to serve are. Let's say, as a choir teacher, my side hustle was going to be to create a YouTube channel about singing, how to improve your voice as a singer. Let's say I've done some of the things that I talked about earlier in the video. Let's say I already have figured out who it is that I'm going to serve and how it is that I'm going to serve them. So let's say I've targeted it to, I want to serve mainly high school students who are preparing for college auditions for musical theater. That's a real subset of people. I work with those kids every day. So I'm wanting to serve this community of high schoolers who are preparing for auditions for a musical theater program in college. And let's say the way I want to serve them is through a YouTube channel where I can share tips and tricks, or I can share rep suggestions. And let's say I'm using my YouTube channel as a way to find students that I can coach one-on-one over Zoom. So, YouTube is kind of for a broader audience of any kids who are like, I just need some tips on how to do well for my college auditions. And through that, I'm also letting them know, like, hey, if you want like one-on-one coaching with me, you can check out the link down in the description below and we can schedule a time. This is how much it costs, yada, 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 right? So I know who it is that I'm going to serve and I know how I'm going to serve them. when I think about the content that I want to create to attract my audience to me on YouTube, the best way to do that is to answer questions that they have in video form. But how do I know what questions they have? How do I know what they're searching online? This is so easy to reverse engineer. All you need to do is go to the Google search bar or the YouTube search bar and start typing things like how to prepare for musical theater auditions or musical theater college auditions, and see what words pop up after that initial search. And you'll see things like, let's do it right now. I'm gonna search on Google. I'm gonna search musical theater college auditions. And when I type that in, I see after that, so I typed musical theater college auditions, I see musical theater college auditions book, I see musical theater college audition coach, songs, audition process, audition prep, audition resume. These are all things that people are searching that are related to the topic of musical theater college auditions. I'm gonna pick one of these things. I'm gonna pick musical theater college audition process. That would be a great video, right? Like you could interview 4 kids who have just gone through the process. Maybe they auditioned at different schools, and you can ask them what their process was like so that in one video, someone can get firsthand accounts of what these 4 different auditionees had to go through and what their process looked like for their particular school. But another thing that I could do is I could type into the YouTube search bar, musical theater college audition process. I could, watch a couple videos, but even more important than watching the videos, I would go to the comment section and I would see what questions are people asking, because that means this video was made about this particular topic, but it didn't answer this particular question. Someone still has a question about X, Y, and Z that wasn't addressed in the original video itself. So that would be a great way to come up with topics for this YouTube channel that I plan on starting. I don't plan on starting it, but you get the point. This is how you can start attracting people to the content that you're creating, is by knowing your audience's pain points, and Google and YouTube just make it so easy to figure out what those pain points are. The next thing that I would do if I were to start a side hustle in the year 2025 is I would really focus on building out my email list. You probably, if you are in this like entrepreneur space at all, you've heard people talk about this. But I will say, even though I heard it so much, it was something that I just did not do. Even now, after reselling for the number of years that I've been reselling and creating content, my email list is not that big. And it was just because it was never a priority. Now, if you aren't really in the entrepreneur space, you might be like, well, why is it so important? Why do I need an email list? And the main reason for that is because whatever avenue it is that you use to reach your audience, whether it's YouTube, whether you have a blog, maybe you're on Instagram, those platforms can go away in an instant. And in an instant, you can lose your connection with your audience. If I had an email list with the emails of my audience, then I could quickly send out an email saying, YouTube is gone. This is where I am now. This is where you can find me. This is where we can continue to connect. Email is also powerful because let's use my last example of having a YouTube channel for high schoolers preparing for college auditions for musical theater. And, my hope being that I would be able to get them to sign up for like one-on-one coaching. I can talk about my one-on-one coaching all I want in my YouTube videos, and I'll probably get a couple hits from that. Like I might get, a handful of people to sign up for my coaching that way. But there's a lot more friction when it comes to getting someone to click on your link through a YouTube video. First of all, YouTube is not a big fan of people sending their audience members off of YouTube. Like their goal is for people to stay on YouTube for as long as possible. So they don't love that. And furthermore, I know a lot of my audience for my reselling YouTube channel, for example, I know some of them actually watch my YouTube videos on a TV. They cast it to their TV and they have me on in the background while they're doing their reselling work. I know I, for example, will sometimes play YouTube videos in the car while I'm driving. I'm not like actively watching them, but I just have them playing and I can listen to them in the background. And when that's the case, if I in a video share, hey, I am offering one-on-one coaching and I'd love for you to sign up, the link is down in the description, not everyone is watching your video in a setting that's conducive for them to, at that point, click on that link. And they might forget that that's something that you offer. They may never come across a video of yours again. Whereas with an email list, once you build out your one-on-one coaching and you're ready to offer it to the general public, if you have an email list, that's going to show up on their phone, on their laptop. It's going to live in their inbox, which is super powerful. And so for me, especially in the year 2025, one of my priorities is building out my email list, which I guess means this is a great time for me to tell you I have an email list. If you would like to join it, I do have the link down in the description below or in my show notes. And I do plan on sending out newsletters and maybe hosting just like online Zoom sessions where people can get together to plan or to just share like how their side hustles are going. I don't have things fully fleshed out yet, but if you want to be one of the first to know when I do, definitely make sure that you are part of my email list. See how I did that? Email list. Grow it in the year 2025. You and I, let's keep each other accountable on that. The next thing I would do if I were to start my side hustle in the year 2025 is to just start with what you have. I'll be honest, I have a little bit more now than I actually need. I have right now in front of me a Samson Q, what are you? What is this called? I have a Samson Q9U. That's the name of my microphone. And I have this because many podcasters have said this is a great mic for people who are starting their podcasts. So I was like, okay, I will get it. And I do have a ring light. This is something that I got years after I started my other YouTube channel. I am filming this right now as well on my Sony something camera. I don't know what the name of this is called. So I'm starting with a lot more than I actually need. If I were to start a podcast today, all I really would need is my phone and a pair of those like cheapo headphones that comes with iPhones, because those have those little built-in mics on them. I think I could create a pretty good podcast with just those two things. And I would say start with what you have. You don't need to invest a lot of money in something. I'm honestly a huge fan with starting side hustles with as little money as possible and then leveling up as you start making money from your side hustle. But I think in most cases, you can start with what you have and make do until you start to kind of figure things out, until you start making some money. That's personally what I would do, because I have seen people lose a lot of money up front and it takes them a really long time to just even break even, if they ever do at all. So my general piece of advice would be just start with what you have. The last thing I would do if I were to start a side hustle in the year 2025, and I did do this with Rich Teachers, is I would tell everyone you know. Tell everyone. When I launched Rich Teachers, I posted on my personal Facebook, I posted on my reselling YouTube channel, even though, most of the people over there are not teachers. I brought it up in conversations with friends. Like, I just told everyone that I knew, because a lot of businesses grow as a result of word of mouth. Even with this podcast, I told everyone that I could on every platform that I could. And I have a lot of friends, or even in my reselling community, a lot of people who are not teachers themselves who said, I'm not a teacher, but I'm passing this on to blank who is. I'm passing this on to my daughter who is. I'm going to share this with my community on Instagram. If you tell people and they tell people, now you've got a lot of people talking about your new business. And I would say I would take that one step further, depending on what your side hustle is. With the example of someone who wants to create a YouTube channel for high schoolers that are preparing for musical theater auditions for college, not only would I tell everyone that I know and hope that they know someone who's got a kid who's preparing for college auditions, but I would also reach out to local schools, local high schools, to their choral programs. I would reach out to local voice teachers. I would reach out to local theaters. I would reach out to anyone that might know anyone who could benefit from the kind of content that I was creating. Your YouTube channel or podcast can blow up even with you telling no one in your personal life about it, but that means you're starting off amazing. That means your content is firing on all cylinders and it's just really taking off within the YouTube algorithm or the podcast algorithm. But that's not the norm. That is an exception. But especially when I think about service-based side hustles, you're offering a service. We're talking about lawn care, we're talking about doing hair, tutoring, that sort of thing. It's going to be hard for those side hustles to blow up if you just sit on that information yourself. I don't know how you think people are going to find out about the services that you're offering unless you tell the people. You have to get the word out there. And again, when you tell everyone that you know, the hope is that they will tell other people that they know and that word will spread. This is something that I was so scared to do when I started my reselling business in 2017. I didn't tell anyone that I started a YouTube channel when I started one in 2019. I don't know. I guess I was kind of embarrassed to some degree, especially when I was first starting, because I had like 4 subscribers and I was like, well, I don't want anyone to watch this when they can see that no one cares about, the content that I'm throwing up on YouTube. And that's why if I could do it all over again in the year 2025, I would start off by saying, listen, world, I am doing this thing, and I would appreciate it if you would check it out. And if it's not for you, that you would pass it along to someone in your life that would appreciate the content I'm creating. So I've gone through this before. I've started side hustles and I'm doing it again. I'm starting one. This is it. I'm starting one in the year 2025. And these are the steps I'm taking in order to grow my side hustle as fast as I can so that I can get to the point where I'm making money from this venture as quickly as possible. Because that's kind of the point, right, of side hustles, is to make income, because Lord knows we are not making enough as teachers. So I hope you took something away from this episode. If you did, I'd love it if you could leave some love for it in some shape or form. If you're streaming this as a podcast, you could leave a 5-star review, which is so helpful to the growth of my podcast. And on YouTube, you can like this video. And with both options, you can share them with any friends or family you may have that you think would benefit from listening to the content that I share here on Rich Teachers. But thank you again so much for spending your time with me. And as always, from me to you, thank you for being a teacher and for changing the lives of your students. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.